I am Katie Wallace. I'm the Assistant Director of Sustainability at New Belgium, and I've been here for 12 years.
So talk to me about your time at New Belgium a little bit and all the changes that you've kind of witnessed firsthand.
Sure. When I started, we had about 200 people, and we were all in one building, the warehouse and the packaging hall and the brewery, and I knew everybody's name. And I still know hundreds of people's names, probably most people's names, but as we expanded to multiple sites and hired more salespeople across the country, then we've definitely grown a bit, but had the whole time kept the soul and the familial attributes of New Belgium too.
Let's talk a little bit about just the facility here in Colorado. I mean, I would imagine that in your time, this place has undergone a bunch of changes as you guys have grown. What's that process been like, sort of, I guess, building into a space? And then, how did you guys consider or start considering a second facility expansion? At what point were you guys actually looking, sort of internally and saying, we need a new space?
I guess at the point we started hitting capacity restraints, right? So I think since this brewery has been built in '95, I believe we've had a couple of dozen expansions, little bit by little bit as we've grown and been able to invest in a new brew house, for example. This brew house was built in 2002 that we're sitting in, and slowly over time reached the maximum capacity for this brewery site. We thought we could expand a little bit more on this site if we needed to, but we wanted to spread out a little bit and use different water systems instead of just taxing one water system locally here in Colorado and shipping far distances across the country. We thought it would be more environmentally friendly to place our brewery in a different location and spread out the distribution sites.
So as you guys were scouting locations, where were you looking, and I guess how did you ultimately determine that Asheville was the right place for New Belgium?
Well, we started first looking on the West Coast a little bit and the East Coast. We knew we wanted a little bit of distance from the brewery, obviously, to reduce the overall transportation of the beer. And then we had a list of criteria that we wanted a new home to fulfill for us. We wanted it to be, of course, like close to highways and good transportation centers for most efficient transportation. And we also wanted it to be within a watershed that was robust and healthy, so that was something that we worried less about over time, right? We prioritized walkability and bikeability. Here in Fort Collins, we are right here in town, and people can walk and ride their bikes to have beers, or if you're working here and you need to go to the bank, you can take a bike and head on over. And because beer is a place, something that brings people together and people gather around, we really wanted to be in the heart of the community. And so we wanted a community for our second site that also allowed for that people could gather around and we could be in town and people could walk and bike to the brewery.
What are the primary differences between the facility here in Colorado and the new facility in Asheville? And I'm thinking in terms of space and equipment and capabilities. I would imagine that you guys probably learned a lot as you had to grow into this space in Colorado that you either implemented in Asheville or said, we need to do it differently. What are the primary differences?
The cool thing about New Belgium is that Jeff and Kim had a set of values that from the very beginning, before they ever sold their first bottle of beer. And environmental stewardship was one of those, and just overall being conscious towards the community and the people and the planet. And so we, from the very beginning, have built in efficiencies and daylighting features, et cetera, throughout the Fort Collins brewery. And those obviously translated over to Asheville. And what's different now is that technology has improved, lighting systems have improved, and those are things that we've been replacing slowly over time here in Fort Collins, but we're able to just do the right thing, install the latest technology there in Asheville right now. And then the other benefit is that in Fort Collins, when we started, we didn't know how big craft brewing would get. We didn't know how much we would grow. And so when we built this site, we built a little bit by a little bit. And in Asheville, we built for the build out for the full capacity of that site. And so we're able to design it a little more intelligently. The pipes are a little bit shorter from one location to the next. It's a bit more compact. So we hope to see some efficiencies gained from that, but overall the same philosophies that we luckily started with early here are translating over to Asheville as well.
In terms of the features here in Fort Collins versus Asheville, is there anything unique to either brewery? Is there one brewery that's more sustainable? I would imagine that was like a serious area of focus for you as you were building out Asheville. So what's unique to Colorado, and what have you guys done in North Carolina?
I would say that as far as the philosophy goes, they're pretty similar. And even, for example, like the water, we were so surprised when we did the testing of the water that they have almost identical profiles. So we're not really having to change the water at all before we brew with it. So surprisingly, we have a lot of similarities between the two. We don't at this point know if there's one that's more sustainable than the other. We'll figure out where the usage and efficiency ratios come in once we get to capacity and fully launch Asheville. But we're hoping to be at least on par with that, if not better, than Fort Collins. But I think the spirit will change a little bit, and we hope that it does, because we want to bring something, kind of the core and the skeleton of what we know works, that we've tried and tested over the last quarter of a century here in Fort Collins. But we want the Asheville community to make Asheville its own unique creature. We don't want to just carbon copy Fort Collins over to Asheville. It really helps us to have some dynamic and unique influences there. So you'll see in the Asheville Brewery that we have art that's placed throughout the building that was old graffiti from the site that was deconstructed and built into the brewery. I think there's a great art scene in Asheville, and that's something that you'll see come out a little bit more perhaps in our brewery there. But certainly it's alive and well here, and as we certainly take learnings from Fort Collins and apply them to Asheville, but we'll be doing the same thing in Asheville, right? We're learning things over there and seeing what unique ideas that they bring to the table and this unique skill set of people that are working there, and we'll be bringing those ideas over here to Fort Collins, and we think that it's a really robust way to kind of better both sites.
All right, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So happy to have you guys here.
Cheers.
Cheers.